The tall glass building of Collins Enterprises stood like a silent guardian over the busy city streets, and inside its top-floor office Richard Collins, the stern and powerful CEO, was buried in endless paperwork. He was a man known for his determination, his sharp mind, and his ability to build an empire from nothing, yet behind the polished exterior he carried a private wound. His daughter Sophia had once been the light of his world, but now she lived in shadows. Sophia was only 17 and had been in a car accident 2 years earlier that left her unable to walk. Her wheelchair was now her constant companion, and with it came the weight of despair. She had been bright and full of laughter before the accident. She had dreams of painting the world with her art, of traveling to foreign lands, and of standing on her own 2 feet as she pursued a future filled with promise. But the accident had stripped away that spirit, and now she felt like a fragile bird trapped in a cage. Every morning she would sit by her bedroom window in the Collins mansion, gazing at the wide gardens that stretched before her. The roses bloomed in colors that seemed too vibrant for her heavy heart. Her nurse tried to cheer her. Her father hired the best doctors in the world. Therapists came and went, offering words of encouragement that fell like empty notes into her silence. Sophia would smile faintly, only to spare others from her pain, but deep inside she felt she had lost her worth. Richard Collins carried the guilt of that day like an anchor tied to his chest. He had been the one driving when the truck swerved into their car. Though the doctors assured him there was nothing he could have done, he could never forgive himself. His way of coping was to drown himself in work and to provide everything his daughter might need. Yet what Sophia needed was not another material comfort. She needed hope. On the other side of the city, Ethan Ward lived a very different life. He was a single father raising his 10-year-old son Liam after losing his wife to illness 3 years ago. Ethan was not a wealthy man. He worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and to pay for Liam's school. He fixed cars during the day at a small garage, and in the evenings he worked as a delivery driver. Despite the hardships, Ethan's home was filled with warmth and laughter because love held the walls together stronger than any brick or steel. Liam was a lively child with boundless energy and curiosity. He often asked about his mother, and Ethan told him stories about her kindness and her courage. The boy grew up understanding that life could be unfair, yet also believing that people had the strength to face anything when they had someone standing beside them. Ethan was proud of raising Liam to see the world not with bitterness but with gratitude for every small joy. It was fate that crossed the paths of these 2 families who lived in such different worlds. One Saturday morning, Sophia sat alone in the garden with her sketchbook, though she had not drawn in months. Her father had persuaded her to come outside and breathe the summer air. She wheeled herself under the old oak tree and stared at the blank page. Her hand trembled with the pencil. She remembered when she could lose herself in art for hours, but now she could not find the will. Just then the sound of laughter carried across the fence that separated the Collins estate from the public park beyond. Ethan had brought Liam to play soccer there, as he often did on weekends. The ball rolled too far and Liam ran after it until it bumped against the edge of the Collins garden. He looked through the bars of the gate and spotted Sophia sitting in her chair. "Hi," Liam called cheerfully, his smile bright as sunlight. "Do you like drawing?" Sophia was startled. Few people outside the house ever spoke to her. She blinked at him, unsure of what to say. "I used to," she whispered. "You should draw me playing soccer with my dad," Liam grinned. "He is not very good, but I always win." Sophia almost laughed. The boy's innocence carried no pity, only pure friendliness. She felt a strange warmth stir inside her chest. Ethan jogged up moments later to collect the ball. He nodded politely to Sophia, recognizing her face from newspaper articles about the powerful CEO's daughter. He noticed the sadness in her eyes, though he did not mention it. Instead he smiled and said, "He can talk all day if you let him. I hope he is not bothering you." Sophia shook her head. "He is fine." Something about Ethan's calm voice felt different from the rehearsed words of comfort she had heard from so many adults. He did not look at her with pity or discomfort. He simply treated her as though she were a person, not a broken piece of porcelain. From that day Liam made it a habit to wave to Sophia whenever they came to the park. Sometimes he would tell her silly stories about school or show her his newest soccer trick. Slowly Sophia began to wait for those moments. They were small, but they chipped away at the heavy stone of her despair. One afternoon when rain threatened the skies, Liam invited Sophia to watch him play under the shelter of the oak tree. She hesitated, then rolled her chair closer. Ethan noticed the effort it took for her and offered a nod of encouragement. He saw not just a girl in a chair, but a young soul trying to find her way back to life. As days turned into weeks, Sophia began to feel the faint stirrings of hope. She still could not imagine walking again, yet she realized she could still live, still smile, still share laughter. The bond between her and Liam grew like a seed pushing through hard soil. And Ethan, watching all this, began to feel a quiet promise take root in his heart. He could not turn away from the girl who had lost her will to fight. He knew what it meant to lose someone, and he sensed that Sophia needed someone to stand by her in ways even her father could not. The summer air grew warmer as days passed, and Sophia found herself drawn more and more to the park fence where Liam always greeted her with a smile. She began to sketch again, little by little. At first it was just rough outlines of the trees or the soccer ball, then soon she was capturing Liam in motion, his arms wide and his laughter bright. Each drawing pulled her further from the heaviness that had chained her heart for so long. Richard noticed the change in his daughter. He would find her sketchbook filled with pages once again. For the first time in years he saw a light return to her eyes. Yet he wondered who had caused this shift, because Sophia spoke little about her days. One afternoon when he came home early, he saw her at the oak tree laughing softly as Liam showed her a silly trick while Ethan stood nearby watching with quiet pride. Richard stopped at a distance, overwhelmed with relief and also confusion. Later that night Richard asked Sophia who the boy and the man were. She hesitated before answering. She told him about Liam and how he had encouraged her to pick up her pencil again. She spoke of Ethan's kindness and how he never looked at her with pity. Richard listened carefully, feeling gratitude toward them but also a sting of guilt that he himself had failed to bring hope back into his daughter's life. The next weekend Richard decided to speak with Ethan. He found him in the park sitting on the bench while Liam kicked the ball across the grass. Richard approached and introduced himself formally. Ethan stood and shook his hand politely. There was no fear in his eyes, no awe of the wealthy CEO, only the calm respect of a man who knew his own worth. "Thank you," Richard said, his voice low. "I do not know if you understand what your son has given my daughter. She had stopped living after the accident. Now she smiles again." Ethan nodded slowly. "Sometimes all someone needs is a friend. Liam does not see a wheelchair. He just sees Sophia." Richard felt those words strike deep within him. He realized how often he himself had looked at his daughter with sorrow instead of simply seeing her as she was. As the weeks turned into months, Sophia grew stronger, not in body but in spirit. She still struggled with dark days, but now she had reasons to keep going. Liam became her closest friend and Ethan visited often, bringing stories that lifted her heart. One evening when autumn leaves covered the ground, Sophia confided in Ethan. "I used to think my life was over," she said softly. "But when you and Liam came, I started to believe maybe it is not. Maybe there is still something worth living for." Ethan looked at her with gentle eyes. "There is always something worth living for, Sophia. Sometimes it is hidden until someone helps you see it. You are stronger than you think." His words lingered with her long after. She began painting again, not just sketches but full canvases filled with color and life. She painted the oak tree, the roses in her garden, and the park where Liam played. Each piece became a symbol of her journey from despair to hope. Richard was astonished by the transformation. For years he had tried to heal her with money and doctors, but it was a simple boy and his father who had opened the door to her heart. He realized then that wealth could not buy healing, but love and compassion could. Winter arrived with its quiet snows. Sophia invited Liam and Ethan to the Collins home for the holidays. At first Ethan hesitated, feeling that he and his son did not belong in such luxury. But Sophia insisted and Richard himself extended the invitation with warmth. On Christmas Eve they gathered around the great tree in the Collins living room. Sophia handed Liam a small painting she had made of him kicking a soccer ball. The boy's eyes shone with joy as he hugged her tightly. That night, after the guests had gone to bed, Richard spoke to Ethan in the study. "You have given my daughter what I could not," Richard admitted. "I want you to know that you will always be welcome here. She needs people like you in her life." Ethan shook his head humbly. "She has done more for us than you realize. Liam has learned compassion in a deeper way, and I have remembered what it means to believe in new beginnings." The bond between the families deepened with time. Sophia no longer hid behind her window. She ventured out with Ethan and Liam, exploring art galleries or simply sitting in the park. People stared sometimes, but she no longer cared. She had found her courage again. One spring afternoon Sophia unveiled her first public art exhibition. Canvases filled the gallery, each telling a story of pain transformed into hope. Guests admired her work and Richard stood proudly beside her. Ethan and Liam were there too, beaming with pride as though she were family. When asked what inspired her art, Sophia pointed to them and said, "They reminded me that life is not over when you fall. It is only beginning when someone helps you rise. Tears welled in Richard's eyes as he watched the crowd applaud. For so long he had feared his daughter's spirit was lost forever. Now he saw her shining brighter than ever. He turned to Ethan and whispered, "Thank you for standing by her when I could not." Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "You never stopped loving her, Richard. Sometimes it just takes more than one person to help someone heal." We all stood by her together. That night, Sophia looked at her father Ethan and Liam gathered around her. She realized she was not broken. She was surrounded by people who believed in her. And though she could not walk, she could paint, she could laugh, she could dream again. Her heart whispered a truth she had once thought impossible. She had lost all hope, but because one single father and his son had chosen to stand by her, she had found it once more.